That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about running towards true independence. And I hope when we're done today that you'll be able to say you're a runner as well. You see, I see, by the way, I'm Jason Schakow, if you don't know. But I see the same thing pretty much every day at the high school that I work at. I see students that are chomping at the bit and sprinting towards independence. They want freedom from parental oversight, and they want what they think is true independence. And in many ways, we all act the same way as adults. We glorify the idea of making our own decisions and finding our own way. Let me tell you before I get too far into this, though, the way we think about independence is faulty and backwards. Often we think that if we didn't have anyone telling us what to do, our life would be perfect. Anybody fall into that category? If I just could avoid being told what to do today, life would be perfect. But I'm here to tell you, though, and let you know that if you want to feel the joy that comes from having what we think would be an independent life, you actually need to be completely dependent on God. We need to take the attitude of the psalmist that penned Psalm 62, verse 5 through 8. He says, I depend on God alone. I put my hope in Him. He alone protects me and saves me. He's my defender, and I shall never be defeated. My salvation and honor depend on God. He is my strong protector. He is my shelter. Trust in God at all times, my people. Tell Him all your troubles, for He is our refuge. You see, in that psalm right there, the psalmist knows the freedom of complete dependence on God. If you don't know, I've got 4 kids. I've got 4 kids, and they desperately want to be independent. Right? Like, for instance, they want to be able to fill up their own water balloons in the front hose in front of our house. They want to be able to be responsible for that. Not going to go there yet. I, the other day, actually had a complete hour of independence. It was amazing. Right? A complete hour where I didn't have any responsibilities. I could make my own choices. You know what I did? Let's see if I can show you. That's what I did, right there. That is what an hour of independence looks like, right there. And what my kids and I have in common is when we're left to our own choices, we often choose what pleases us, but it might not actually produce anything good, or it ends up you leave the hose on for 2 full days and flood your basement, and then you have to talk to basement waterproofing agents, and then you have 5 humidifiers and 6 fans running. And is that too specific? Was that a little? Maybe that was a little too specific, but you get what I'm saying, right? If we were totally independent of everything, we would just choose whatever felt good and feel joy. Can we please get that off of there? Okay. But if we were totally independent, right, we would only feel joy for a fleeting moment, and ultimately we'd end up unfulfilled. That's my point to that. We often try to do the exact same thing with our spiritual relationship with God. We want an independent life with a little bit of God thrown in, right? Our view of our relationship with God is largely dictated on how we go through this world. How much we worry about the events of life is largely based on how we see our God. If we see God as this cosmic killjoy, that our thoughts will likely be plagued with guilt and shame over every sinful thought or angry moment. But if we see God as some doting grandfather who turns a blind eye to all our shortcomings, we'll make an excuse for all of our wrong actions. And if we think that God is looking for a great bargain, we're going to expect him to come through for us when we've done something good for him. You see, our quality of life will always rise and fall on our view of God and our expectations of him. Once we come to know God as a truly loving Heavenly Father that he is, worry simply just doesn't make sense. We worry because we try to solve our own problems in our lives and we don't depend on God for the answers. Those who have not placed their faith in God completely live only for the moment they're in. Their peace of mind or anxiety is tied to their circumstances. But those whose faith is secure in our Father are able to live above the worries of this world. There's a philosopher and Christian writer named Dallas Willard. He pointed out, people who are ignorant of God live only to eat, drink, and dress. For such things the Gentiles seek. And their lives are filled with corresponding anxiety, anger, and depression about how they look and how they feel. By contrast, though, those who understand Jesus and his Father know that the provisions have already been made for them. Their confidence has been confirmed by their experience. Though they work, they do not worry about things on earth. Instead, they're always seeking first the kingdom. That is, they place top priority on identifying and involving themselves in what God is doing and the kind of righteousness he has. Everything else is provided. I really liked how he said that, but don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean that believers in Christ are trouble-free, right? They're not trouble-free, they're worry-free. Sometimes it may be our faith which actually brings us troubles as we navigate in this world that seems to be bent on operating upside down. But still, in spite of our circumstances, those who depend on God will find out for themselves the truth that the psalmist discovered long ago when he said, one more back. Hey, there we go. I'm getting it. A righteous man may have troubles, but the Lord delivers them from them all. That's Psalm 34:19. Notice the psalmist doesn't say God bargains for the man or God delivers the man who has a high quality of life. No. He says the righteous man may have troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. All. That's why we have to stop independently relying on just our own merit to pull us through whatever trouble that we may encounter. We just need to trust fully that God is going to walk us through the difficulties to the other side to a deeper, stronger relationship with him. That's what I mean when I talk about full dependence is true independence. You can let go of all that stuff that holds you back if you just fully give it over to God. Because when you fully give over your worries to God and become dependent on his will, it gives you the freedom to be carefree. I know what you're thinking, right? Carefree sounds like a sweet way to live, right? The problem is, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to be totally dependent on God. How do I do that? Do I just sit there and let things happen? What if I starve? No, you don't just get to sit there, right? You have to dedicate yourself to the work God has planned for you. And that's highlighted in one of my favorite passages. It's Ephesians 2:10. See, I'm doing it and you're doing it. It's great. Ephesians 2:10. Go back one more. It reads, "For we are God's craftsmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do." What I've always loved about this verse was the start. That we are God's craftsmanship, right? We're his masterpiece. Built for good works through Christ Jesus. However, if you look at the end of this verse, that's more of the daunting part, right? To do good works which God prepared in advance for us to do. We already have work set out for us. And when we independently choose whatever makes us happy, we might be avoiding the work that God has prepared in advance for us to be doing. Living dependently on God means living out your Christian faith in the area He has planned for you. Which brings me to the verses I really want to focus on today, which holds some key wisdom for living a dependent life, which leads to true independence successfully. It's in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 12. And while you flip to that, I'm going to feel a bit more like a runner. If we're talking about running today, I'm going to get equipped here so I can deliver this message the right way here. Don't worry, I'm going to stop with just the shirt. I'm not going to go short shorts on you or anything. Ben might never leave the country again. So we're in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 12. And it starts off, it says, "Therefore, since we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us." Now, some of you guys might not know, I like to run. Well, I like the effects running has. I don't always love to run, right? It's not every run that I love. My brother once told me that when I started running, he said, "Hey, don't worry about trying to figure out which one of your friends are actually runners, because runners will tell you within the first 5 minutes of meeting them that they're a runner." Right? Oh, this line here at Miller's reminds me of the line at registration for that marathon I ran. And I don't know why runners do that, but we do that all the time. And what I've found, though, as a runner, it applies equally well to my life as a Christian. And we're looking here at step 1, right? Things I learned in running and as a Christian apply right here to this first verse. It says, "Surround yourself with a great cloud of witnesses and run the race that's already set." You see, when I run, I find it much harder to give up and go back to whatever I was doing, like eating Doritos and not running, right? If I know that there are people watching, if I know I have a chance of running into somebody, or if I have a chance that one of my friends is going to witness my actions, I stay in line. I keep running, right? Thinking of someone seeing your behavior and the witness can help give you an energy boost to keep you going when you're tired. When I was running my first marathon, did I mention I ran one of those? I don't know. It came up. I don't know how it came up. I was wearing down. Around mile 15, I was wearing down. And that's when some of my biggest supporters showed up with signs, right? And that boost alone, seeing them, my children, Chuck's looking way too cool for school right there. He's a tough guy, right? But seeing them at mile 15 gave me enough to go for about another 4 miles just on that boost from seeing my people, right? At that point, I didn't worry about being tired or sore, but I thought about enjoying where I was and what I was doing. You see, when you run by yourself, you spend a lot of time thinking about how you're falling behind, you're not performing right, these minor pains start cropping up that tell you, stop running, right? Ooh, is that a knee problem? It might be. I should stop. I should just stop running, right? Those things pop up for you. But when you surround yourself with a great cloud of witnesses, because training with others around helps keep you locked into the race, right? That is set out for you to run and not the other distractions that keep you from your goal, right? If you've ever tried to get fit or to diet by yourself, you know how hard that is to stay committed. So you need to make sure to be around people that will push you to stay dependent on your Maker. I'm not just talking about your physical health, your spiritual health. It's just as hard to keep up on those things if you're not surrounded by people that will keep you honest to what you're supposed to be doing. These people that can sharpen you can come in many different ways. They can be close friends that know how to get you to push harder to grow. For example, last Tuesday, my group of men, I think I called it like a men's group, we meet for breakfast on Tuesday morning. And being as how I didn't have to dress for work because I had the day off for 30 days in a row, I ran to breakfast. It's a little under a mile, so I ran, sat there all sweaty, and they didn't mind at all, right? But it was under a mile, and I meant to run more that day, but I wasn't going to, right? And Kyle was sitting across from me and said, so are you going to run further on the way home then? I mean, you got nothing else to do today, right? You're going to take the long way home? And I was like, yeah, probably. I'm not going to do that. So I wanted to just go home. I knew it was under a mile. I could get home. I could probably go back to bed before everybody got up. And I was standing out there in the parking lot of Hometown thinking about the mile to go home, and Chad came out, getting ready to go to work, and he said, so, which way are you going to go? You want to help me map a route? And I was like, well, I was thinking about going up to 200, or I could just go home. And he's like, no, I think 200 is the way to go. I think you go up there, right? So I did, right? I said, all right, God, you're talking through Kyle and Chad here. I'm going to start running a little further. But that simple dialogue pushed me to turn in my fastest 3 miles of the summer, right? I felt great, and it was because my friends had pushed me to be better. How are you doing that for the people in your life? And are there people in your life breathing into you spiritually that way? It could be just that simple. Did they say anything like hard truth? No, it was, you should try this. I think you should, right? You can do that same thing spiritually, right? Like, hey, what devotional are you reading right now, right? What Bible study have you gone to? Don't say that. Sounded like accusation. Like, you don't have to come at it that way. But just ask them, hey, what are you reading lately? I'm looking for something too, right? Ask your friends that. Push them that way. It's that simple. The other thing my friends do for me is they live close to my running routes. Mark Yoder lives on... Katie lives there too. Mark Yoder, though, he lives on my least favorite running route. Like, if I lived where you guys live, I would not run. There's hills, like, both sides. He lives right in the middle of it. And I love that he does, because I know two things. If I stop and I start walking where that running is the hardest, he's going to see me. And he is going to speak truth into my life about how the fact that he saw me walking. Right? He's going to tell you. The other thing is, I know that if I truly can't make it home, he'll give me a ride. Right? Like right in the middle, I just go, hey, you got to take me. He will. Right? And that's my advice on that is have friends that are spread out in your life as well. You see, I have friends like that pretty much in every direction I run. I have a lot of friends, and I just plan my running around people's houses. For that reason. And that's what they do for me. They keep me on track physically, but you also need this cloud of witnesses to keep you on track spiritually as well. The people that can tell you when you're straying off course, or people that can pick you up when you truly hit the wall and say, I have no more energy. Can you help me? Put those people in your life and spread them out, right? But know where they're at all times. I want to go back and repeat that last part of that verse also, that you need to run the race that's set out for you to run. You see, that's the thing I love most about this allusion used in Hebrews. Running a race is so similar to life. If 300 people show up for a race, there's really 300 races going on that day. Each one with its own personal challenges. You have to race the one that's set out before you. And you're the only one that can run that. The advice in this passage is good to follow because this life of ours is not a sprint. It's a marathon, which I've run before, by the way. So, moving into verse 3, though, I want to look at that. It says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right-hand throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. That's step 2 of getting your life to a place where you are totally dependent on God so you can celebrate that true independence. Keep your eyes focused on Jesus. There's a lot of times where we can take our eyes off the goal. And when you do that, all you see are the obstacles. When you focus on Jesus, the obstacles don't intimidate or distract you. Okay, I want to show it to you. That's the hill I'm starting to talk about, okay? It doesn't look that bad there, right? When I talk about the route I don't like, that Mark lives up at the top of the next hill that's on top of that hill. It doesn't look that bad in the picture, but there's times where I'll change my entire running route, go out on 20, just to avoid that hill, right? It's long, and it's steep, and it feels uphill both ways. I decided to run it the other day, though. I was just going to get over myself and just go run it. In the back of my mind, during the run, that hill got larger and larger the closer I got. Right? The 2 miles it took me to get over there, I was just building up that hill in my mind. But I got through it. I pushed through it, luckily, and I finished what was the longest run of the summer for me that day on a course that had the most hills. I was pumped. I went back, I looked at my watch, I was going to look at my stats and see how great I was, right? Like, that was a hard workout, I'm going to go brag about it to my wife. And I looked at it, and I found something out. The course that I ran, that 4 miles, was actually more downhill than it was uphill. As I was walking in to brag about it, I was like, oh, I ran the... That's no good. I felt dumb, right? Because, like, for 3 years, I've been building that hill and that course up in my mind of like, man, that's a really hard run. You know, so many hills back there. I was obsessed with it, right? Then I find out that it wasn't even as bad as I thought it was. And that's what you get when you focus on the sin and suffering of your actual life instead of the end goal of a strong relationship with Jesus Christ. Don't settle for looking at the mess that you're currently in or you think you might be heading into, and look at the one with the power enough to get you through all of it. That's where your focus should be. For the next step, I want to actually skip to verse 7. It says, endure hardships as discipline. God is treating you as sons. For what son is not disciplined by his father? Moreover, we all had human fathers that have disciplined us, and we have respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of our spirits and lives? Our fathers disciplined us for a little while, as they thought best. But God disciplines us for our good, that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. See, that's step 3. Embrace the hardships that you face. They truly make you stronger. Sometimes the trials get extremely hard, and all you can say is, God, I love you, I trust you, and I gave you the best I had today. And you see, in running, I've had plenty of runs where I just wasn't feeling it, right? And there's this thing that I do when I'm running, besides breathing extremely heavily and sweating. There's this thing that I do where I take a check. Like if I'm like, I can't go any further, I just take a body check and say, what's going right now? Right? Maybe I feel like I can't breathe, but my legs feel all right. My legs feel good. I can keep doing this. Maybe my legs feel super heavy, but I'm not out of breath. Right? Maybe I'm out of breath, my legs feel heavy, but I'm not currently being hit by a car. Right? Check mark. What's going right? And it reminds me that no matter what's going on in that kind of endurance training, something's always going right. I'm closer to home, right? Something's going right for you. So when you get to that feeling and those hardships that I can't get over this, do a status check. What's going right in my life? It'll flip your entire mentality. The best you can do is keep moving forward and try to do better the next time when you hit like that. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you keep your focus where it should be, and you keep moving in that direction, you're still running the race that God set out for you to run. He is using that time to shape you for something to come. Now, I'm going to give you your homework assignment a little early here. Okay? You know, whenever they let a teacher speak, I'm going to give you homework. All right? For lunchtime, what I want you to do is, with someone you trust, I want you to go back to a hardship that you faced in your past, and then connect those dots to see how God used it in your life to make you who you are today. I think you're going to find the end of that verse holds a lot of truth. That no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Remember, when life gets hardest, be careful with how you speak to yourself. You are a masterpiece of God. Don't treat yourself any less. Okay? That moves us to our final verse, verse 12. It says, therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. That's a pretty direct conclusion. Right? Your next step is to strengthen yourself. Strengthen yourself in the Lord. Endurance training as a runner requires strength days. Right? I have all kinds of training plans taped up around our house, and every single one of them has strength days in them. You don't run all the time. Sometimes you have to just go lift weights, right? Or do Pilates, which may or may not happen at my house. But you have to do that. When I first started running, I just wanted to run the races. I wanted the t-shirts that came with it. I wanted the bibs, you know, those number tags. I wanted to hang stuff up. I wanted to collect things. I was a collector. I wasn't really a runner. And I would go out and I'd run these 5Ks, and I'd come in last. There was one in Topeka that it was me, then the ambulance, right? And I felt bad for the driver. I was just go around, I'll make it, just go around. And I would come home all dejected and everything. I ran it like 35 minutes, something like that. And my wife, who we know speaks much wisdom into my life, was like, what are you doing to get better? You don't train at all. You don't do anything with your legs. You don't actually lift weights. What are you doing? That's why you finish that way. Harsh, but true, right? Right? You can trust that wisdom, right? She's there to speak truth into me. And she did that day. And the same thing is true for you, right? When you talk about running your spiritual race, you have to have strength days in there, right? So let's start with your arms. I got a great arm exercise for you. You lift up a Bible and you open it, right? Oh, you feel that, right? You turn the pages, right? Great arm exercises right there. You got to get into this daily, all right? You need to spend time in His Word daily, or you'll never be able to complete your marathon training if you don't include strength days. Find a devotional that you connect to, and you could even pick a book of the Bible and study it, right? Just start reading it daily until you start to understand it. Look for commentaries on the internet, right? What is it saying about this? What are biblical scholars saying about this book that I'm reading? Find something you can debate with your training partners, right? Read Acts together. See what it says. Talk about it. It doesn't matter what you do necessarily to strengthen yourself as long as you're in the Word, but you need to get working at it. You can't go out today and expect to run 6 miles if you haven't trained at all ever. I apologize for my giggle right there. I tried to do that the other day. I hadn't been running for a little while, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to just go run 6. And the truth speaker in my life, who shall remain mostly nameless, she said, you can't do that. There's no way you could go run 6 miles right now. And I almost did out of spite, which is not a good reason to run, right? But I went out and I ran 2, and I was dead. So I went home, honey, you're right, I couldn't do it, right? And you can't either. If you walked out of here today and said, I'm going to totally be dependent on God, and you hadn't gone through any of the proper strength training, you're going to wear out and eventually you're going to quit. If If reading isn't necessarily your thing, though, right? Like I can't find time to get in and read, go into the App Store on your phone or whatever and find just daily devotionals. There's a ton of free ones that'll send you push notifications too. They'll even get you on track. Right? Just wake up, boom, here's a Bible verse for you. Here's applications for it. Here's a way you can journal it, right? If you can't seem to crack into this, that's a good first step. The last part of that verse is about strengthening your weak knees. And in order to do that, you need to pray. Spend time daily, if not hourly, in prayer. You don't have to wait until you're here in a pew or you're up here at the altars. I pray a bunch when I run, right? I'll just start going and have a conversation about a problem I'm having or what's going on in my life. And sometimes I just pray, please help me make it home, right? It could be a simple prayer. But I just pray while I'm out there, and it's one of the places I go to connect to God, because He shows me things like this when I'm out there running. And there is no chance that does any justice to the beauty of that the day I took it, right? But while I'm out there interacting with God, and I see that He created this, He also created me. And He created you. And He cares about you. Your Father in heaven has set out plans for you and has a race for you to run. Start praying and having a conversation with Him about what His plans are for you. Stop acting independently and saying, God, I want to do this, bless it, and start asking, how can I obey what you had for me to do? Right? If He can put together something this intricate of the colors, the hues, the sunset, if He can put that together so nicely for one day, imagine what He wants to do in your life for all of your days. Don't worry if you don't see or hear the answer right away. Just keep going forward, running toward Him. So in closing, we talked a lot about running today, specifically about me doing marathons, right? But I want to show you something. These, I thought, this one's pretty cool. It lights up too, right? That's my. What'd I get that for? Oh, I got that for running a marathon. The thing about these, though, as nice as these are and shiny and light up and all that stuff, they're temporary, right? They're going to rust. The moths are going to eat the ribbons. My kids are going to eventually have to throw these away, right? I'm not going to, right? Somebody cleaning out my house is going to have to throw these away, right? Even though it took me months and years of training to earn those, in the eternal scope of life, they don't matter, right? They don't. What does matter is my relationship with Jesus Christ. So if we just follow those 4 simple things set out in Hebrews, to surround yourself with Christian witnesses and run the race that you're set out for you, keep your focus on Jesus and not earthly distractions. Embrace the hardships of your life, because they're going to benefit you later. And start working to strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. We can live a life with all the joys and rewards of what we think independence means, because we'll be totally dependent on the one that can solve every problem and provide for every need. So with that, I want you to stand with me and receive the blessing. Raise your hands. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May His face shine down upon you. May He look upon you with favor. And may He grant to you His peace. Go out. Don't forget about your homework, right? Connect the dots between a hardship you faced and where it got you today. Have a great week. Enjoy Independence Day.